So the famous and a bit controversial B.F. Skinner in the 1900s developed what was called an operant chamber. It largely became known as the Skinner box as a result of his influence in developing this thing. And it was really fascinating. It was a way to control all the variables of the environment to understand how they impacted our behavior. When I say our behavior, the majority of this had to do with a bunch of different species. They looked at pigeons, rats, monkeys, and all walks of life down to single-cell organisms to understand how the environment actually influenced behavior, including humans. Yes, they actually designed these things to where humans could go in and interact. They could study our behavior. From a behavior analytic perspective, everything that we do is a function of the environment, cultural contingencies, or genetics, all of these things coming together. It kind of flips psychology and this idea of the mind and these weird things that we've yet to be able to discover influencing us into a more like holistic or contextual perspective. And that's what I want to talk about today. The Skinner box isolated extremely well in understanding various things that impacted our behavior. Reinforcement, let's take that as an example. We've talked about it on here. If you're not sure about it, go click over, watch this video, come back. There's certain schedules or ways in which we deliver reinforcers that can impact our behavior. This is why things like apps or gaming or gambling can be extremely addicting, while other things that are super important might not have the same sort of value for us, such as checking the mail, doing the dishes, things like that. It's all about these payoff schedules. And see, to understand what was going on, they had to isolate a ton of different variables. They couldn't put in the cultural contingencies. There's just too much stuff going on there. They couldn't put in the economic situations, largely because a lot of the organisms that they worked with weren't under these sort of contingencies and these sort of influences. However, I think that is one of the areas that is the trickiest for behavior analysts to really wrap their head around and understand: the role that other things play. As much as we understand the individual environmental things that happen before and after our behavior, how they trigger and influence what we're going to do in the future, there's one that seems to be just massively influential that is hard to wrap our heads around, and that is the idea of money, cash. How cash influences behavior, and really how it's this invisible hand that is constantly forcing what we can and can't do, whether or not we like it. It even has its own special category of what we call a generalized conditioned reinforcer, meaning that it has value because it can lead us to other valuable things in life. But the thing is we never satiate off of it. We can never have enough. It is this weird, unique thing that we learn about in a quick little line in a textbook, but I think needs much more emphasis. And this has been talked about actually. Good Old Science and Human Behavior by B.F. Skinner actually has an entire chapter dedicated to economic control. We can see this in other areas of history too. In World War II, it's been said that America learned not to control through complete trench warfare and sheer just numbers of people, but through economic means. And we see this in international relations all the time. So how is this related to behavior analysts? There's a saying in business that I love and hate. It's this idea that cash is oxygen. They're literally equating the thing that allows us to have life on Earth, experience life, with cash. And this just doesn't seem right. Maybe it's because of the behavior analysis, the wanting to do better in the world around me, but it's something that I tell myself because it does drive everything that's going on in the world to some extent. And so was Skinner's box missing this variable? No, that's just a fancy way for me to kind of clickbait you in and maybe engage with this content a little bit. Hope you're still here around for it at this point in the video. His point of the Skinner box was to isolate and understand the basic principles of behavior. And then we would start to extend our research and look at them in these larger contexts. If you want to see something like this, there's some really fascinating stuff going on in like behavioral economics. I'm going to share one of my favorite researchers down below to go check out. But the point of this is that no matter how hard we try to get away from an economic influence, it is there. It's there for the clients we serve, it's there for us, it's there for the businesses, it's there for our governments. Unfortunately, money's always going to be there. So for me, it seems that you either have one choice, which is to completely buck the system and get rid of it in this sort of Walden 2 sort of society, which I think is impossible or extremely difficult. Or on the other hand, you can learn how to just leverage this to your advantage and figure out the best way for your own value set of how to make this work. But this isn't built into our conceptual models. You don't see an ABC analysis or a 4-term contingency breakdown including these sort of factors, but they are arguably the most important, and it's naive to think otherwise. I really secretly hope that I look back on this video in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and I'm like, yep, that guy got it wrong. But I feel that the more that this is understood and embraced, the more you can move forward with your goals and what you're trying to achieve. Not that it's gonna put money in pockets, but it's gonna allow you to achieve the things that you want to achieve. Hope this was interesting. Consider liking, sharing, subscribing if it's something that you're into. And yeah, I'm backed by a bunch of patrons. Thank you for over 250 of you now. That's insane. That's your Daily BA.